आइए करता रहिए, welcome. So welcome everyone. So this is our studio setup. This is where the magic happens. So as you can see, it's a very small room. It's hardly 10 feet by 10 feet. So I think it's even less than 100 square feet. But the good part is we've been able to convert it into 3 different setups. So the first one is what you very clearly recognize. So there's the sofa setup, a cushion is there, the sofa is there, this is where I sit, the plant is there, and we have the backdrops. And once we are done with this, we kind of move into a green screen kind of a setup. So the green screen is just behind it, we kind of lift it up and then we kind of use the green screen. And then there is also this third setup, which is the workdesk setup. So we have the camera at an angle and we use it. In terms of props, I think the lights are probably the most important thing for a content creator. So we use 3 of them. Sometimes we even use 5 of them to kind of fill up this entire room. Another very important device is obviously the teleprompter, and this teleprompter is really helpful in terms of making sure that what I say comes out clear and it's absolutely legible. And there's one more device which is very important, which is the audio part, and I use a very simple Sasta Boya microphone. I think it's worth some 600 or 700 rupees, and this does the job, and that's it. So this is where the magic happens, and we'll get back to regular programming. So today is day 100 of me launching my YouTube channel, and while I've always talked about investing money in my videos, I thought why not make this about investing in oneself. And so in this video, I shall be sharing my experiences, my thought process, my struggles, definitely my learnings, with the assumption that each of us has the potential to be a content creator in the future. I mean, it's not difficult for me to see a future when all of us will be expected to create some content. Either you do it for your company like I used to do it in my ET Money days, or better, you might want to portray yourself as a thought leader, a contributor, or you would like to share your knowledge with the world. Either ways, it means you have to write, you might have to edit an image, get on a podcast, or create a video like what I'm doing here. So from my perspective, video, and YouTube in particular, augments my 3 passions: investing, teaching, and creativity. And if you've been watching my videos, you should be able to see glimpses of all 3. That is, I make videos on investing, wealth creation, and personal finance. I explain concepts using different techniques to break down a problem into understandable fractions, and I love to play around with my presentations and thumbnails. In fact, for most viewers, a finance video is either educational or it is entertaining. But for me as a content creator, the correct word is actually liberating. And that's because I get to tell my story, my perspective, to thousands of people, and more importantly, a few hundred of them actually act upon it. So essentially, that's lesson number 1 in my YouTube journey. Always have a purpose. Alright, so data time. How has the channel performed? Well, for a channel that has just crossed 3 months, I'm quite pleased with the progress. And yes, while there are views and subscribers, the metric I really like to track are the watch hours. So I'm at about 60,000 hours of watch time, which is like saying there are 6 people who have watched every second of my content for an entire year. That's the power of YouTube, and I'm grateful we have access to a platform like this, which not only educates us, but also helps us to do a lot more with our lives. Now, when it comes to views, I have to tell you there were days of ecstasy and despair. Actually, there were weeks of ecstasy and anguish. While it wasn't exactly an 80-20, but the top 20 days contributed 40% of the views, while the bottom 20 days gave me only 4% of the views. So the big learning for me as a content creator and for you as a content viewer is that not every video will be a banger, and there will be days when the viewership of my content will be at the mercy of people's preferences and of course the YouTube algorithm, as I recently discovered when the Adani saga was going on. And speaking of viewer preferences, something I thought through even before the channel was to figure out the audience for whom the content will be a perfect match. I think this wasn't an issue 2 or 3 years back when anyone could make any kind of video, but with YouTube and its engine becoming more sophisticated, it's all the more important to find the right niche and the right target market for one's content. So here's how my thought process went. Firstly, I figured most content creators, and when I say most, it's like 90% of the creators. So most of them were active in the beginners segment, that is people who were new to investing. So topics like what is a mutual fund, how does an SIP work, how to open a trading account, what is Nifty 50, etc. Which effectively means the competition was a lot lower in the beginners plus category, that is people who were not new to investing and had been participating in stocks and mutual funds for the last 2 to 3 years. So this became a strong incentive for me, and I decided to focus more on the beginners plus segment and create slightly advanced investing content. Now, as logical as this seems, I have to tell you that this was not an easy decision to make, and that's because the beginner base, that is people who are very new to investing, is a huge base in our country, and that's where a lot of views are currently. But then I thought, if there are say a crore beginners right now, then maybe 2 years from now, a large number of these investors will no longer be beginners and they would have graduated to a beginners plus category, which means even these investors will need a higher education in investing. And by then I can be ready with 100, maybe 200 videos that satisfies the knowledge hunger in them. To put it differently, I am sowing the seeds and irrigating the land today so that when these investors are ready, there will be cooked food on the table and we can all feast upon it. The fourth box one needs to address is the type of content, and it starts with what you want to present. In my view, this what to present question is often the biggest stumbling block for new YouTubers or content creators, and my learning and suggestion is that before you do anything, write down at least 30 topics on which you can confidently create a 10-minute video or an article. The point is, if you are struggling to write 30 topics in your chosen niche, then the odds are high that you will feel the heat very quickly and will quit soon. In my case, I started off with a list of over 100 topics, and as you can see from my videos, my entire orientation is to look at a problem analytically and with data. The other thing I learned about content in these last 100 days is to be very flexible with it, and this is where I think that Steve Jobs' quote on people not knowing what they want until they see it is actually true. I mean, a lot of people have seen my ET Money videos. It was a general template which didn't change over 2 years. I would be sitting behind a table, just talking, no props, no dramatization, some moving graphics on the side and stuff like that. However, on this channel, I tried out a number of new things and a lot of them came out rather well. But what most of you don't know is that when I discussed these ideas with a few of my close friends, almost everyone had that same ET Money image in their head and I didn't get much support from them. Nevertheless, I went ahead with what I thought was right. And the reason I'm saying this is because as a content creator, you will receive dozens of unsolicited advice. And 95% of that advice will be based on the person's view of the world. And the lesson I've learned is that the best content comes not when you're trying to adapt to everyone's need and trying to be a good boy, but it comes out when you are authentic and your presentation, your content is an adaptation of your side of life. To put it differently, I think good content is about being authentic, about being flexible to try out different styles and to adjust your approach using actual feedback rather than untested opinions. My next learning over 100 days relates to the content structure. And no, I'm not talking about the script, that is the introduction, the body and the summary. In fact, I'm following something what I call as the head, body, tail structure. It's not some official framework and it's just something I made on the fly, but okay, so the head is where the brain and the eyes are, which means it's the thumbnails and the title part of the content, which has to be both relevant and visually appealing. So that's the first part of my content structure. Next comes the body, which is where the heart is, and the content's heart is what you write as a script and what you present through it. And the tail is the engagement part, which includes things like answering comments, any follow-up to the content, the community post, etc. So instead of confusing myself with a framework that includes a lot of moving parts, I am focusing on improving and perfecting this head, body and tail structure, which is essentially 6 things. The thumbnail, the title, the content, the presentation, the comments and the community posts. That's it. And while it's not easy, or let me rephrase that, while it's not difficult, it does take a lot of time to get the head, body and tail right, but it's still worth it because the rewards are far more than the efforts put in. So if you're trying to build a personal brand on LinkedIn, or even when you are trying to make a presentation to a client or to your office colleagues, try to incorporate a lot more of this head, body, tail framework, and let's see if this can improve the delivery of your output. And finally, there is the monetization bit, and as it stands, I am still quite a distance away from reaching a break-even point. But I'm not worried because these things take time in terms of growing an audience and for YouTube to recognize that a channel like mine is adding value in the lives of people who are watching it. Now, YouTube itself offers many income generating opportunities. There is, of course, advertising, there is merchandise sales, there is super thanks, and I really want to thank everyone who has shown their appreciation of my content with their super thanks contribution. And personally, I don't think it's about money. In fact, and I'm not able to express it, but it feels really good to even receive 20 rupees. See, even my videographer is smiling. But honestly, thank you very much for your super thanks. I truly appreciate it. So YouTube is one way of earning some money, and there are other opportunities like affiliate sales, sponsorships, freelancing opportunities, online courses, membership programs, etc. I think I'm a few months away from unlocking many of these revenue capabilities, but from what I have learned, this profession is entirely about delayed gratification. I mean, it's like that marshmallow test we keep reading about, where children are given two options. You can have one marshmallow now, or you can wait for 15 minutes and have two marshmallows. I think YouTube is about waiting for 8, 9, 10 months at least, but if one does it well and does it consistently, then there are quite a number of marshmallows to have. Alright, so let me sum up my learnings of my first 100 days and present it as an instruction sheet, as a cheat sheet that any budding content creator, including you, can copy and execute. Number one, if you have an existing job, don't quit that to become a content creator. This profession is not as glamorous as it looks, so start small and get the hang of it first. You can start by writing a newsletter over the weekend, or make one video a week, or start a live podcast with a new episode every Sunday, etc. Number two, content creation is a lot like tennis. You can't win a game by reading a book, which means confidence and talent is overrated here. Instead, good content is about repetition and practice, a bit like whacking 1,000 balls a day, and the more you do it, the easier and better it gets for you. Thirdly, stay within your circle of competence and test it out by listing down at least 30 topics on which you can comfortably write an article or create a 10-minute script. Point 4 is for you to focus on the right content elements, and in my case, I spoke of how I use the head, body, tail association to create high quality, visually appealing content along with ongoing engagements with my viewers. The fifth point, and again this is a learning in these last 100 days, is that fatigue will set in. And I'm not just talking about the creator getting tired, but even the viewer will get tired. So if I continue to appear in the same setup, talk about the same thing, then it's very likely that the viewer will shift focus from my video. Now don't take me wrong, the content is not the problem here, but the mind works in a very different way, and what it generally earns for is some kind of change. So try to mix it up with different presentation styles, different types of content, some new location, etc., so that viewer fatigue can at least be delayed, if not eliminated. My sixth learning is around quantity and quality, and because YouTube wants quantity and viewers want quality, I would say both are important. Of course, individually YouTube will say quantity and viewers will say quality, but because both are a part of the same ecosystem along with you, it's better to keep both parties happy. And my final lesson from my first 100 days of doing this is that you can't and you should not try and do everything by yourself. Essentially, as soon as I start getting some traction, I have to recruit and invest in a small team that can help me with some research, with engagement, managing social media accounts, so that I can spend more time on the core activities of content creation. So that's what I have learned in these last 100 days, and hopefully it helps you. Remember, content creation on YouTube or LinkedIn or Instagram or anywhere else takes time and effort. So take small steps, be consistent, be flexible, give it your best shot, like this video, and I'll see you 3 days from now. Until then.